Did you ever wonder what went through the minds of the NDP when they put a bunch of radical anti-oil activists in charge of the future of Alberta's oil sands? You see, there's a panel convened by the NDP, something called the Oil Sands Advisory Group. And according to the government website, the group is composed of members from industry, environmental organizations, and Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities to advise the government on the oil sands aspects of its climate leadership plan. And I wanted to know how the NDP chose all these people who now sit on the Oil Sands Advisory Group. How did lifelong anti-oil, anti-Alberta, anti-pipeline activists like Tzeporah Berman and Karen Mahone end up deciding what happens to Alberta's oil industry? That's why I filed a Freedom of Information request to get some answers about the Oil Sands Advisory Group and how these people were chosen. I asked the government to provide me copies of all documents, including emails, briefing notes, backgrounders, memos, instant or text messages, media lines, all regarding the organizing and makeup of the Oil Sands Advisory Group from January 1st to July 18th, 2016. And I got back some pretty darn interesting findings. What I found out was that this supposedly balanced panel of experts would not include anyone who did not support the NDP government's plan for the oil industry. Look at this. These are the letters Shannon Phillips, the Environment Minister, sent out to Aboriginal, municipal, and industry leaders looking for nominees to sit on the oil sands panel. It read, "We are looking for people who represent organizations that support the goals of the Climate Leadership Plan and its implementation, particularly as it applies to oil sands, and who themselves support these goals." So the NDP would only include people who support the goals of the NDP. Well, how's that for balance? The panel doesn't include a single person who thinks there's another way to move forward with oil sands development without a cap on emissions. The NDP were stacking the deck against industry from the beginning, which is strange because when Rachel Notley was questioned about the anti-oil makeup of the panel, she said this: "People will disagree, but the way forward is to find common cause, not to develop silos and to develop your own echo chamber and then be really surprised when no one agrees with where you are going." Notley designed the nomination process to give her an echo chamber, and then she accuses people who notice this of wanting an echo chamber. Self-awareness, like math, is hard, I guess. But what I really wanted to know was how those anti-oil activists like Karen Mahone from Stand Earth and panel co-chair Tzeporah Berman from Forest Ethics and Tim Gray from Environmental Defense got onto that panel. Were they sent the same letters to nominate themselves that everyone else was? Well, from the documents, the answer is no. This email details who did get those letters. It says oil sands company CEOs, Treaty 6 and 8 First Nation Grand Chiefs and Chiefs, Métis organizations, and municipalities. No environmental NGOs. What I found is that the environmental activists were not part of the open nomination process. They were not sent letters inviting them to apply. What that means is that they were hand-picked, while everyone else had to go through a different process. The NGOs were the only ones hand-picked to sit on that panel. That also means that all of Tzeporah Berman's anti-oil behavior and statements are no surprise to Rachel Notley. Behavior and statements like this.
Oil corrodes.
Oil is not only corroding our pipelines,
But more so than just corroding pipelines. It's corroding our pipelines for sure.
oil is corroding our democracy.
Democracy.
It's corroding our democracy.
But it's also corroding our institutions, the preconditions that are necessary for democracy. Oil is corroding our democracy.
Rachel Notley chose these people for exactly who they are, because these NGOs hate Alberta's oil. They're going to be the ones getting their hands dirty saying no to Alberta's oil, so Rachel Notley doesn't have to. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. To find out more about the Oil Sands Advisory Group co-chair, Tzeporah Berman, and her past anti-oil activism, go to fireberman.ca.